Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching this interview. Today, I am here with Gina Vollmer, who is Senior Corporate Counsel in Supply Chain and Regulatory Affairs for Home Depot. Gina, how are you doing today? Thanks for joining me.
Very good, thanks. Thanks, Tyler, for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So first of all, can you just tell me a little bit about your role and the work you do at Home Depot?
Sure, absolutely. So you mentioned I'm currently the Senior Corporate Counsel at Home Depot, supporting international supply chain and regulatory issues, which includes global trade compliance and anti-bribery compliance, among other regulatory areas. But also prior to Home Depot, I was Assistant General Counsel and Lead Counsel for International Trade at Caterpillar. So I was involved in various aspects of developing and enhancing compliance programs across various risk areas. So having experience in manufacturing and then experience in retail has been really interesting to kind of evaluate compliance programs from both those aspects.
That is helpful. I often find that people who have cross-industry experience like that have an interesting point of comparison for kind of holistically looking at the programs they're working with.
Definitely, and I think that echoes, some of the comments that you'll see in the DOJ's guidance on evaluating compliance programs, that there really is no one-size-fits-all. So I think there's tips and tricks that you can learn, but certainly need to adapt to your particular risk profile and industry.
Mm-hmm. And when did you join the team at Home Depot?
I've been with Home Depot just short of 2 years.
Okay. So you are also a member of the Association of Corporate Counsels Compliance and Ethics Network. Can you tell me a little bit more about the network and what it does?
Yeah, definitely. So the Compliance and Ethics Network is a fantastic resource within the Association of Corporate Counsel for in-house counsel across industries and functional areas, and can be a great resource for both small and large corporations, which is really neat. And we provide resources for counsel to assist with addressing modern approaches to corporate ethics and compliance matters. So we offer legal quick hits each month. We offer publication resources that can assist counsel think through issues and maybe approaches short of benchmarking, and then do have informal avenues to seek out what others are doing to kind of compare notes in a very informal way. So definitely excited about the direction that we're headed within the network.
So on that note, you're actually appearing on a panel at the upcoming Association of Corporate Counsel virtual annual meeting on compliance risk specifically. Can you talk a bit more about the topic of the panel and how you all decided what to focus on?
Sure, definitely. I'm really excited to be hosting this panel within the annual meeting, and it's a long-winded title, but the short form is the taking a holistic approach to combat compliance risks. So looking at how you can integrate your program across risk areas, build efficiencies while also really building efficacy in the way you approach this. So we have a really awesome panel of experts across industries and functional areas to offer thoughts on how you can approach enhancing or developing a compliance program, again, whether regardless of the size, your function, or your resources available, really kind of approaching the development in a way that you can leverage the data that you already have in one risk area and build efficiencies that way. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can approach your risk assessments in order to find some of these efficiencies that may be within your program, because again, it may not look the same from company to company, but we'll try to provide some tools and thoughts for how you can dig within your company and resources and your particular risks to see how one risk area may play off another risk area, and you can then develop your compliance approach in a more concerted way that's more efficient in the end. So looking at consolidation and things like that, and due diligence, or how you leverage the data you collect in one area to mitigate risk in another area. So
that makes sense.
Excited.
And I would have to imagine that this is something that, having had cross-industry experience, is probably helpful for you, with having had potentially several different companies worth of experience and being able to look at it from that perspective.
That is one area. We have being able to look at different risk areas and different approaches that each of the companies I've worked with have taken, I think you get to kind of see in, grab different perspectives, including the perspectives of the panel, and how, you target risk and how you mitigate risk. And now, within my current role, seeing various risk areas and how the data collected in one area can really be beneficial to form the program in another area, or use it as a helpful input to take a proactive approach in another area has been really helpful. So I think it definitely will prove to be a really insightful discussion, and we have just the preparation for the panel has been really exciting and interesting to hear different perspectives from the different panel members.
Mm-hmm. Could you give me a little bit more actually about what kinds of data that you're looking at? So your specialization right now is supply chain and regulatory stuff. What are some data points that you're looking at that have applications broader than just the silo that you're working in?
Yeah, so one example would be, and this is an area to consider for, to the extent it makes sense, area for consolidation, but certainly data sharing. If you think about trade compliance and anti-corruption, there's also, you're collecting data on financial solvency and creditworthiness of companies, and sometimes that's handled more in the business unit, but really helpful information is typically collected in that type, sort of financial review of a company that can also inform a risk profile of a service provider you're engaging from an anti-bribery perspective, for example. So these financial solvency reports and anti-bribery due diligence, for example, can provide details on beneficial ownership. And that's another important data point when you're evaluating international trade risk. So these concepts in a variety of different areas is something we want to sort of play out and help compliance officers think through. And, I think especially for smaller compliance offices or functions within a company, trying to get the most bang for your buck is pretty important. And so we're trying to, give ideas on how you can think through these different interrelations of the indicia of risk, and how you could leverage what you may already have in-house in one area to mitigate risk in another.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like one of your pieces of advice for compliance teams who are trying to tackle this problem is just looking at the data you have and trying to figure out how it might be useful to somebody else on your team, and whether or not you're actually communicating about it.
That's right. And I think, one thing that's been helpful is to think about how you're communicating about risk. So having a multifunctional sort of stakeholder review to share information in a particular risk area can prove helpful, because you can learn more about the business, and then, make sure that those business folks are provided enough information to help, be your watchdogs for potential issues that need to be escalated. So having that multifunctional sort of steering committee approach is definitely a helpful way to empower your internal teams, and then also have a feedback loop of information. So that's one area we'll talk about as well. But yeah, I think, there's data is just so important in the compliance space, and using the data you have that you may not know you have, but it may take a little bit of investigatory work, is really important, and I think can prove to be very valuable in the compliance space.
Certainly a challenge everybody's dealing with at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you or your team working on right now, developing, that you're most excited to implement here in the next, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's the next 2 years, whatever time horizon you're thinking?
Yeah, I think, that's, we're all facing different challenges in light of the current external environment here. But that's actually proven to be somewhat exciting in our space to think through, what challenges are our associates facing in light of the current pandemic. And, particularly in the training space, not being able to train all of our associates in person that would typically be targeted for in-person training in the compliance space. How can we create impactful approaches and interactive approaches to training in a different media, and then carry messages around how our risk profile may look different in light of the pandemic, pressures on the supply chain and things like that. We want to make sure that we're enhancing our approach to training, both in the way we deliver it, but also as well as the content. So I'm pretty excited about that, and looking forward to continuing to add a fresh perspective and different perspective from my background to the current compliance programs at Home Depot.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gina. It sounds like it's going to be a really fascinating panel. Any final thoughts?
No, I think the panel really, again, I've really enjoyed even just the pre-planning for the panel, and there's been really healthy discussion from the panel members and great ideas. I'm excited for it and hope that we can offer some great benefit to those that are able to attend and join us and have some great takeaways for folks.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. The Association of Corporate Counsels virtual annual meeting will be
October 12th through 16th.
That's right.
All right. Well, if you aren't already registered, get on that, and you'll be able to attend interesting and helpful and fascinating panels like the one that Gina is going to be leading. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.